the Royal Aircraft Factory B.E.12a. The prototype B.E.2e flew for the first time in February 1916. As this variant of the B.E.2c was ultimately built in greater numbers than any other B.E. type, it was more or less inevitable that wings of the B.E.2e configuration should be mated with the B.E.12 fuselage. The resulting combination was originally designated B.E.12aE, but common sense prevailed and the new type was soon renamed the B.E.12a. Fewer than 100 B.E.12as were built. The Coventry Ordnance Works and the Daimler Company each received a contract for 50, but some, at least, of the Coventry Ordnance Works built aircraft were built as or modified to become B.E.12s. All had the rounded fin and small tailplane. The angle of incidence of the main planes was 4 degrees 15 minutes. It was 4 degrees 9 minutes on the B.E.12. Central Flying School tested a B.E.12a in mid-November 1916. The report stated that, in comparison with the B.E.12, it was much easier to land, lighter on the controls, and more easily maneuvered. No doubt Trenchard's ban on the B.E.12 was considered to cover the B.E.12a also, for no operational unit in the RFC used the type in France. The few specimens that went there were flown by the Special Flight of the 9th, Headquarters Wing, for a short period in the summer of 1917. B.E.12s had been available in numbers from the late autumn of 1916. The Coventry Ordnance Works batch of 50 had been delivered before the end of that year, and some were allotted to home defense squadrons before the year was out. At least 3 such units had B.E.12as at some time, but the aircraft's poor climbing performance made it an unsatisfactory home defense machine. In an attempt to improve the maneuverability of the B.E.12a, a set of experimental wings and ailerons were tested at the Royal Aircraft Factory in November 1916. These surfaces had the same basic configuration as those of the BE-2E/12A, but their tips were raked at a wider angle, and only the upper wings were fitted with ailerons. The control surfaces had very large balance areas. The subject aircraft was number 6511. Which, as a BE-12, had been used to test the Davis gun installation. In its modified form, it did not have a gravity tank under the port upper wing that was standard on the BE-12 and 12A. The first recorded flight of number 6511 in its modified form was made on the 13th of November 1916, with Frank Gooden at the controls. It continued to be flown in this form for at least 3 weeks, but the aileron balances were too large, and the aircraft's flight characteristics were unpleasant. The BE-2E wings remained standard for the BE-12a, but the Royal Aircraft Factory revived the balanced ailerons a few months later on the FE-9. It was in Palestine that the BE-12a's most active service was performed. In June 1917, number 67, Australian Squadron, received its first B-12a. This aircraft's operational career was brief. In a combat with 3 enemy fighters on 25th of June 1917, it was shot down near Tel El Sharia. On the 8th of July, another of number 67's BE-12as was forced down and its pilot, Lieutenant C.H. Voughton, taken prisoner. When the artillery bombardment of Gaza began on the 27th of October 1917, number 67 Squadron had 5 BE-12as on its strength. These were used to escort the squadron's RE-8s, which spotted for the guns, and soon added night bombing and photography to their activities. Indeed, the only recorded victory scored by a BE-12a occurred on the 17th of January 1918, during a photographic sortie, when Lieutenant L.T.E. Taplin shot down an albatross that had attacked him. In February 1918, number 67, Australian Squadron became Number 1 Squadron, Australian Flying Corps, and headed over its BE-12As to the nucleus of a new RFC Squadron, Number 142 at Julis. By the 19th of September, the squadron had no BE-12A on charge, and what may have been the last two operational aircraft of the type had been destroyed. These two had been attached to Lieutenant Colonel T.E. Lawrence's force at El Umtaiy. One was shot down, the other was destroyed by bombs. The Royal Air Force still had 64 BE-12s and 12As on charge on the 31st of October, 1918. More than half of that number were in the Middle East, probably at training units. Only 12 were with home defense squadrons.